Hello and welcome. You are looking at the website ManyChat.com. And ManyChat.com is an application that will allow you to use your Facebook Messenger in order to build a contact list as well as to automate contact with individuals that you work with commercially on Facebook. The most common terminology used for what ManyChat does is called building a Facebook bot. And the platform allows individuals to create Facebook bots without having to know extensive coding or development. It's a cloud-based application that will allow you to send messages to subscribers. It will also afford you the same opportunities to create automated messages with certain autoresponders. There is an option that will allow you to interact using live chat. And it's a sensible move because Facebook has about 1 billion active users. ManyChat is used by individuals looking to interact with their own Facebook contact list, as well as agencies looking to work with the contacts of other companies. And since this is a relatively new opportunity, there are more applications being created every day for the use of Facebook bots. So in this course, we will work to understand the basic flow builder so that you'll be able to use this platform to create your own Facebook bot. And we'll start by looking at the pricing for the application. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. We are now at ManyChat.com, and one of the things you'll notice is that you have a pricing matrix on the front page. We're going to take a look at that matrix. When we open up the pricing matrix, you're going to notice that there are two plans for ManyChat. First is a free plan, which you can start just by opening an account. The second plan is a pro plan, and that gives you access to all of the elements of ManyChat, including integration and payments as part of the add-ons. Now, when you start the pro plan, you'll be starting at 0 subscribers, and that means then that the pro plan will start at $10 a month. Now, as you go up in number of subscribers, the amount per subscriber will start to go down that you'll be paying every single month. And as you can see here, the amount per subscriber at 2,500 subscribers is different from the rate that you'd be paying at 25,000 subscribers. And you can see that here. And just so that you'll want to note, you can make that payment with any major credit card. You will not be able to make the payment with PayPal. So in this course, although we're going to start by opening a free account, we're going to work with the pro account because it gives us access to both integrations and payments as part of the set of tools that we'll be using to build our messenger bot. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. In this video, we are going to go ahead and we're going to open up our ManyChat account. And we'll come to the home page and we're going to click Get Started for Free. What we're going to do is you want to read ManyChat's terms of service as well as their privacy policy. And once you've done that, what you're going to do is you're going to click that you agree, and then you're going to click Sign In with Facebook. The service will ask if it can use your name and profile, and you're going to click Continue. Now, the service is going to ask to be able to manage your business pages, and you can determine if you're going to allow it to have access to all of your business pages or just some of them. Now, you will have the opportunity inside of ManyChat to determine which pages you're going to work with for your messaging. So what you can do is you can just click OK and then manage the process inside of ManyChat. You'll then be asked some identifying information, and this is for ManyChat's informational purposes only. You then determine which pages you're going to connect to ManyChat. Once you've done that, you'll indicate whether you're going to be using this account for an actual business or whether you're going to be doing the work for a client. And once you've done that, you'll then want to connect to ManyChat. Now, what we're going to do in this case right from the beginning is we're going to upgrade to Pro. You're going to see that here in this area. So we're going to click Upgrade to Pro. And then we're going to click Upgrade to Pro. And then again, you're going to then be required to enter your credit card information. You'll then be charged the amount for between 0 and 500 subscribers. You'll also be asked to give your mobile number for added security. The one thing you'll want to note during the sign-up process is that each connected page is going to be billed as a separate account. So when you're considering how you're going to structure what you're doing with ManyChat, you're going to want to be aware of the pricing and how you structure your subscriber. So one thing that you can see if you're adding pages is that you'll have a page that could be part of the free program. You'll have another one as part of the pro program. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now what we're going to do first is we're going to start with the page that we want to work with, and we're going to start with the page that we have set up with the Pro Edition. So we're going to choose that page. The page is then going to open up. What you're then going to want to do is you're going to want to open up your settings area. What you're going to want to write in is what your visitors are going to see before they start the session with your Messenger bot. And you can see how this is going to look when you click on this link. So what we're going to do is we're going to write this text in. We're then going to click Save. And then we're going to click this link so we can see how the text is going to look. And so ManyChat will then give you the preview to be what you want it to be. And you have some other settings here which you can use according to your own preference and how individuals interact with your page. Once you've completed that part, you can then look at your live chat settings. Now by default for live chat, you're going to see that the conversation will be opened only by the admin. You can switch this if you want so that a live chat is started by an incoming message. We're going to leave this on the default setting. Now if you want the experience to be personalized, you can click this button and this will then show the team member name who is responding as well as their profile picture. However, if you want it to be branded, you'll leave this as it is. You can close up all of your remaining ManyChat conversations. When you're first getting started, this isn't necessarily going to be relevant as you get started. And then what you're going to do is you can then turn off the sound notifications, because if you have a lot of notifications coming in, this can be a bit distracting. So we're going to turn this setting off. Now the next setting over, you're going to want to look at your growth tools. Now depending on where your page is going to be focused in the world, you are going to want to make sure that the language reflects that page. Now in most cases you may leave this to English, but again, this is supposed to be personalized experience, so you want to be careful about which language you're going to use and how your page is going to be used. Now wherever you're going to be using your ManyChat system, you're going to want to write that URL into this area. In this case, you're probably going to want to disable your ManyChat branding. Now this is a personal choice. You can leave it enabled, but again, this then lends itself to your being more in control of the process in the eyes of your prospect. Now we're going to stop the video here and we're going to pick it up and look at the settings starting with the notifications tab. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. We are still working inside of our Messenger bot settings. And what we're going to do is we're now going to go over to the notifications tab. And what you're going to do is you're going to write in the email where you want all of your notifications sent. And when you write that email or you change the email, you are going to need to reconfirm the email. But what's most important about making sure that your notifications work correctly is that you'll want to be able to respond when someone sends you a message. You want to pay close attention to how you want to be notified. If you tend to check your email, you'll want to make sure that the email is checked. If you are going to be on Messenger, for the majority of the time, you'll want to make sure that Messenger is checked. In order to be notified on Messenger, you are going to need to opt into your Messenger list. You're going to need to do that by clicking this subscribe button. Then what you'll see is that these two messages are going to go away so that you can be notified on Messenger. So we're going to go ahead and click this subscribe button. Once you do that, you'll notice that message goes away and then you'll be ready to start receiving messages. Now the custom fields for the bot are going to be useful. What you can do is you can write in additional fields where you want to collect additional information. We are going to come back to this in a later video. What we're going to do right now is we're going to add in our payment system. Now if you currently have a Stripe account, you can add it to your ManyChat bot. Now this is something that you'll only be able to do with the Pro version. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to click Add or Create Stripe Account. And your ManyChat account will then be connected. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now once you have worked with your settings, you're going to want to take a look at the flows section. And this is a very important aspect of setting up your ManyChat system. And basically what you'll be doing is you will be setting up what you want your visitor to see and do when they're interacting with your messenger bot. So what you're going to do first is you're going to click on the flow section. And you're going to notice 6 elements on the left-hand menu. You're going to see opt-in messages, keyword, sequences, and we'll be looking at sequences in a separate video, welcome message, and then default reply. To get started setting up a flow, all you'll need to do is to start by clicking this new flow button. You're going to give your new flow a name. Once you've done that, you'll then click create. You're going to notice 2 ways of looking at the flow section. You're going to be able to look first at the flow builder. If you click this tab, you're going to see a way of being able to structure your flows in a different view from the basic builder. And we'll click it and we'll come back here. In order to add something to the flow, what you'll do is you'll click inside of the button. You'll see that button come onto your canvas. In order to take the flow off the canvas, what you'll do is you'll click on the X. That'll take those elements off of the canvas. If we look at the basic builder, you'll see that if we click inside of this area, what we'll be doing is the same step, except we'll be using a different interface. So if we write in here, you'll notice our message in the starting step. But if we go back to the basic builder, you'll see that same message here, which again, we have access to change by clicking on these buttons. So that is the operation of the basic interface. We can add elements to the canvas for a specific flow for our ManyChat bot. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. In this video, we're going to look at the opt-in messages flow. And if you click the opt-in messages link, you're going to see a list of starter messages. And these are suggested messages that you can use for individuals when they first opt in to your messenger list. So for example, if we go inside of the example pop-out message, what you're going to notice is that you have text that's already there. And if you click inside of that text, you won't be able to edit it or add anything. What you can do is you can click this button that says Edit Flow. That's going to give you access to the content, and then you'll see the dashboard that we saw in the previous video. In order to make changes, what we can do, if we want to add in an emoticon, what we'll do is we'll place our cursor inside of the text, and we can add in the emoticon by clicking this button. And we can add in the emoticon that we want to add in. If we want to add in a variable, such as first name, we can do that. So for example, what we'll need to do is we'll need to click the variable button. You'll see a drop-down menu, and we can add in the variable. Now, one of the things you're going to see here in the variable area is for custom user fields. So for example, if you have collected information in the customer user section, you can use that information in your messaging. So it's something that you'll want to keep in mind as you begin to develop your messenger bots. And you'll notice that we can add on a button to each message. So for example, if we click in this button, we can add in a button and give it a name, and then we can open another website. We can write in the URL here. Once we've completed it, we can then click Done. We then have our button ready. If we've completed this flow, all we'll need to do is to click the Publish button. To add in another step to the flow, all we'll need to do then is we'll need to click this button, and then we'll choose the next step for that particular opt-in flow. And we can add in the next part of the message in this area. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. For the next section down, you're going to see that we have a keyword section. And the keyword section works hand in hand with what we're going to be doing in the automation or the rule section. Now basically, when the visitor types in a certain word, we want there to be a certain response from our messenger bot. And you're going to see 2 messages that are going to be here already, both unsubscribe and subscribe. So for this particular flow, the visitor is going to type in a certain word that we've designated to them in order to unsubscribe from our bot. And then we want to be able to send them a message. What we're going to do now is we're going to go inside of this bot and we're going to edit the flow. And of course, we can then write in this message as to what we want it to be. And what we're doing is right now we're asking the individual if they really want to subscribe from this particular page. And if they do, we're going to have them click this button. In order to click the button, what we're going to do is we're going to set up the button so that it sends a message and then it unsubscribes from a bot with this specific action. And for example, we can look at some of the other actions that are going to be here. So basically, what we're doing is we are giving the visitor a specific set of choices based on a specific keyword that they type in to us. The unsubscribe and the subscribe keyword flows are specific, but we can create our own flow based on other keywords. For example, if we want to create a flow based on sending individuals to a specific recommendation when they type in a keyword, we can do that. We'll create a specific page on our site with our recommended resources. We can also add in other actions. We can tag the individual so that we'll be able to identify them later, as well as any other of the chosen elements. Now, when we save that flow, you're going to see them in your list of flows. However, you will not see them in your keywords area until we go through the automation section where we set the rules. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now, one specific message that you're going to want to set up is going to be the welcome message. You're going to go to that section of the flows, and you're going to see a welcome message that's going to be already here. Now, of course, you can create another or alternate welcome message, but it's a good idea to go into the one that's already here. And what you want to think about is what the individual needs to see as soon as they opt in. And you can choose those elements from this area. In most cases, you are going to want to send a message of some kind. In this case, we're going to add in a variable. We're going to call this the page name. We're going to add in a button. And we're going to add in our support address. And remember, when an individual interacts with our bot, we can always add in an action. So for example, we can subscribe this individual to a specific sequence or list. We can notify other individuals that are going to be on our team. We can add or remove tags. We can add in another step. So for example, we can choose the next step. We can add in a delay. And we can determine that delay is going to be a certain amount of time. And then we can choose another step. We can then decide to send another message. We can then choose what that message is going to be. And in this case, we're going to suggest the individual watch a video. And we can edit and determine what that video is going to be. And basically what we've done is we've created our own Get Started message. We can now click Publish. And our edited welcome message is now ready for new individuals. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now, one final section inside of the flows area you're going to see is going to be your default reply. If you click on that link, what you're going to see is you're going to see one message there. And of course, just as is the case in other sections, you are going to be able to create other default replies. Just note that in order to turn a message or a flow into a default reply, we are going to be doing some interaction with the automation section, which we will be covering in other videos. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to click this default reply, and then we're going to edit this flow. And basically, this reply is going to be one that you'll have turned on when anyone comes to your page and you don't have a specified action set. So for example, you'll see here that the sample message is one that states your page name and that you typically will reply to someone in one day and that they can talk to a human. We're going to click on this button And you're going to notice then that this is going to send the message, and then it's going to keep a conversation open so that you'll know to answer it in your messenger area. So we can change the button title to be what we want it to be. And then we're going to click done. We're then going to alter the text. And remember, what we can do is we can add on anything else inside of the reply. For example, we can add in a video. We can also deliver a specific file. In this case, we can upload a PDF. So basically, our default reply will occur with a customized message whenever someone comes to them and they don't undertake something specifically that we've already set in motion with our automation. Now again, we will activate this by setting our rules in place. What we're going to do right now is we're going to publish. Currently, this is our edited default reply. If we're going to create a new one, that reply will not appear in this section until we designate it inside of our rules area in the automation link. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. In the flow section, you're going to see an area for sequences. And when you get there, there will already be an example sequence. That sequence is going to hold a series of messages, and you're going to be able to look inside of each one of those messages. Now, each one of these messages is part of a specific string or flow that you're going to want your visitors to experience under certain circumstances. And this is going to be the place where those sequences are going to be. Now, a sequence is made of two things. A sequence is going to be made of specific flows along with settings created in the automation area. So for example, if we go inside of the sequences area, you're going to see the example sequence that we just saw in the flows area. If we click inside of that example sequence, what you're going to see is that you have all four messages that are structured according to a specific order. And in the following video, we are going to create that order as well as specific messages. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in the next video. Welcome back. Now, in order to go inside of the existing sequence, we're going to take a look at the first message, and we're going to click on the schedule. When we click on the schedule, we'll notice settings. We'll notice that this first message will be sent immediately, and it's going to be sent after a user is subscribed to this sequence, and it can be sent at any time on any day. We can then look at the educational message, which again has its own schedule. We can alter that schedule. We can make it so that that schedule can be sent between specific times. We can look at a third message, and again, we have the ability to reset or set the timing for each one of these messages. We can set them according to days. We can also reset them according to specific hours. We can add on to the example sequence. So for example, we can click this message button. We can either select an existing message that we already have, or we can create a brand new one. Once we do that, we'll need to write in our message. And we can then click publish. When we go back to the example sequence, we'll see our message there. We can then set the time. Now that we know and understand how sequences work, we can create our own sequence from scratch. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now, if we want to create our own sequences from scratch, we can go to this sequence link, and we can click this button that says create a new sequence. We are then going to name our sequence. And then we're going to click create. What we want to do is we want to determine first the message content. And in this case, we're going to edit the flow of this message. And what we're going to do is we're going to write in a new content. And once we've created our messaging, we're then going to click publish. Now we do have a few choices. We can create another step in this particular message flow, or we can go back and start at the sequence again so that we can determine the next step which is going to be based on time. And to do that, we're going to go to this part of the sequence. You're then going to see this second message, which we can then alter. But in order to establish the sequence, what we're going to do, we're going to determine when this message is going to be sent. So for example, what we can do is we can say that this message is going to be sent 1 hour after the individual is subscribed. Now, in order to create the rest of the sequence, what we can do is we can go and delete the rest of the messages. And we can then start creating our other messages from scratch. In fact, one thing that we can do is we can select existing messages. So for example, we can pick any of the messages that are part of our flows to add them to this particular sequence. And then that message can be reused in a new sequence. So basically, an individual can be subscribed to a specific sequence where you determine the messages that they are going to receive at the intervals at which they are going to receive them. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now, once you've created a sequence, you can then reuse that sequence in another instance. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to click these 3 dots. We're going to click the duplicate button. And then we're going to have our sequence recreated. We can then rename that sequence to what we want it to be. Now, typically, a sequence is going to take a lot of thought and a lot of work to create. And once you're able to get it to convert, one of the things you may want to do is use that sequence on another page. And as long as you're managing that page inside of ManyChat, you can reuse it. So for example, what you can do is you can go back to the flows area, and we can go to the sequences. And we're going to go to the sequence that we have. And then we're going to see the messages that what we can do is we can copy these messages to another page. So what we would do is go to these 3 dots. We'll click copy to another page. We can pick the page, and then we can click copy now. We can do the same thing for the other messages. Now that those messages have been copied over to our other page, we can recreate a sequence using those specific messages. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. When you look within the Automation tab, you're going to see, as of the recording of this video, at the very bottom, a tab that says Rules. And this allows you to create a custom rule. And basically, when something happens for a subscriber, you want your ManyChat bot to perform some kind of action. If it's your first one, you'll click this button. Otherwise, you'll click the button that says Custom Rule. Now first, we're going to give the rule a name. And what we'll need to do first is we'll need to determine how often we want this rule to be executed. So for example, if we click on this link, we can say that we want this rule to be performed once for every user. When you are creating a rule, the first thing you're going to be using is going to be a trigger. So what we're going to do is we're going to click Trigger. And we can determine a time-based trigger, one that happens as a result of a tag being applied or removed, a subscription or unsubscription, or a new subscriber. Now in this case, we're going to say that we want the action to be performed when a specific tag is applied. So we're going to create a new tag. And so the trigger for this action is going to be when the tag is applied. We'll then want to set the specific condition. And for example, we can determine that if the tag is applied and the individual has their last interaction at a specific date, we're going to then perform a specific action within the bot. So what we're going to do then is we're going to click this button that says Action. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to stop the video and we're going to pick it up from using actions. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now we have determined a specific trigger, and now what we need to do is we need to determine a specific action. Now just so that you'll note, we can add a second trigger to this process by clicking this button. However, what we're going to do is we're going to now determine what's going to happen as a result of this tag being applied and the last interaction being after a certain point. So we're going to click this button that says Add in an action. Now what we can do when that tag has been applied to an individual is we can add in a specific action. For example, maybe perhaps what we want to do is we want to start a specific flow. And then we can select the flow that we want to start. And it's going to be an existing flow that we already have in motion. For example, we can choose our educational message. We can add in another action. So now that this tag has been added, and it's happened after a certain period of time, we can then notify individuals by messenger and email. Now in this case, there's only one person that is a user, so that would be the admin that would receive the email and messenger, again, based on a trigger that we have set in motion. So if you have things that you want to happen as a result of actions that have been set in motion by the visitor, you can do that by using the rules inside of the automation section. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now the rule is set in action by a specific tag being applied. And there are several instances where you can have tags applied throughout the process of working with your visitor. So for example, if we were to go inside of our sequences, and then we were to look at one of the sequences, and then we were to look at one of the specific flows within that sequence, we can then edit this flow. And what you'll notice here is that we have a message and an action. We're going to click on top of this action. And what you're going to notice now is that the individual is going to take a specific action. They're going to click the button and then they're going to go to this website. What we're going to do is we're going to click the action button so that we add a specific tag based on that action. In this case, we can add a specific tag. And this is the tag that sets our rule in motion. And once we click done, what we have is a case where the user is going to create some kind of activity that's going to lead to them being moved into a rule that we have set in motion in advance. So what we can do is we can use any of our flows where the user is taking action, and we can add in the bridge between that flow and our rule and further automation. Now, if you recall, there are several triggers. So if you think about these triggers as you are creating your flows, you will be able to have rules set in motion that will help you to accomplish additional automation. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now what you're going to notice is that we went to this particular page and we wrote in the message. The message that we received back was our default message. And you'll see that message here, as well as the video that we set up and the PDF that we set up. So the question is, what else can we set in motion based on the response of the individual that's going to be typing in to their messenger? Now what you're going to do first is you're going to determine how you want the message to be clarified by ManyChat. So for example, we have a few choices. We can make it so that the message is exactly what we write in. The message contains what we write in. The message contains the whole word. The message begins with, or the message is thumbs up. Now in this case, we're going to say that the message contains the word that we want as our keyword. And so we're going to write in the word that we want. Once we do that, we're going to click Create Keyword. So when the individual comes to our page and they write in a message that contains the word support, they're going to get a reply. We're going to determine what that reply is going to be. We're going to select an existing reply. We have a message that we've already written for our support desk. We're then going to click Select this flow. Now what we want to do is we want to test the bot. So we're now going to write in our message. And so this is how you'll set some of your flows in motion. They'll be determined by what your visitor types into your box. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now that you understand the flows of ManyChat, what you'll want to do is you'll want to make sure that you get subscribers into your ManyChat list. And the way that you're going to do that is you're going to create a new rule. Now, when you write that rule, you're going to want to make sure that you have a word that individuals can use indicating their permission to become part of your messenger list, and that they know that you're going to be sending them messages in response to their request. And so you can start the process by determining a certain keyword that you're going to tell them to write. And what you're going to do is you're going to create a keyword. Now that you have a keyword, what you're going to do is you're going to create a reply letting them know what's going to be happening. So you now have in your message, you're going to click Publish. We're now going to go back to the construction page, and we're going to go back one step again to the construction page. What you'll notice is that when the visitor types in the word that we designate, we're going to send them that message. And what we're going to do then is we're then going to click in an action. We're then going to subscribe them to the bot. We're then going to subscribe them to a certain sequence. We're going to determine what that sequence is so that they then get an educational set of messages as well as being subscribed then to our bot. We've now saved this action. So the individual now is going to write in a specific message, and they're going to write in the word that we suggested that they write in. And then we're going to click Enter. So you'll now see the automated message that we just set up. And as well, this individual is now subscribed to our bot. The individual is now part of our audience. You'll note that they're now part of the sequence that we just set up. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. In conclusion, as you build your list of subscribers, you are then going to be able to broadcast messages to them. And you can use the broadcasting tab here inside of ManyChat. And what you're going to do is you're going to click this new broadcast button. And you're going to write in your message. Once that message is written, you can then click Go Next. You'll then have some choices as to how you want to send the message. You can send it as a subscription broadcast, which means that you can send it any time, but you will not be able to send promotional information. You can do a promotional broadcast, or you can do a follow-up broadcast. You can set certain conditions for the actual targeting of individuals for the broadcast. And you can either send the broadcast now, or you can schedule it for later. You can determine how the individual is going to be notified. And once you have all the information in, you can then click Send Now. And then your broadcast will show as sent. And the individual will get the message in their inbox. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I'll see you either in another video or in another course.